Hello, I'm Deborah Sword.
Hi, I'm Tyson Banker.
Tyson, we were talking about frames and reframes, and I just want to be clear about what frames are. Frames
Hmm.
are concepts, they're a map in your mind about how an interaction or a project or a conflict should go, should play out according to your view of how the world works. So you hear a word and you assign a meaning to it. So I have what is a frame? It's this mental map, but what makes a frame? And it depends on your beliefs, your values, your interests, and anything that helps you make decisions to understand and interpret the world around you. So without frames, you'd be almost paralyzed at the simplest of decisions.
Hmm. It makes me think about although I have never worn glasses, it makes me think about people that I know who do, and as they age or as things change, they get new glasses, new frames, a new lens on what they're able to see, and it's always really interesting. I recall a friend one time saying something to me about able to seeing the leaves differently with their new pair of glasses and almost a different shade and a more of a vibrancy that really allowed them to see the full tree a lot better. And but they didn't notice it until they had new frames.
And that was new sensory information coming
Hmm.
in that allowed them to see something in the world differently. It's new
Hmm.
information.
New information. And I think about when you talk about reframe, the frames and the lenses that we hold, so often I think we lose by not really adjusting. We lose out on those benefits of being able to see something differently, and um, and maybe an emotion or an a misunderstanding to something now that's understood.
So let's say you're in a restaurant that's noisy. There's noise all around your table, but you know which conversation to pay attention to. You're at your table with your dinner companions, and there's an occasion that you're celebrating. That's your frame. Everything else is just background context. So the reframe is information that stops you, makes you think, wait, and say, oh, wait, that's my worldview, my mental map, my concept. Is my frame the only possible frame in this situation? So if you're in a conflict, clearly your frame isn't the only possibility, or you and your opponents would agree and there wouldn't be a conflict. So
Mm.
once you accept that yours is only one of the possibilities, you're open to a reframe. So let's say that the server in the restaurant is now coming up to take your order. And the rest of the restaurant now comes into your view. It's beyond just your table. You look over, and the person at the table next to you is eating something that looks wonderful. So you ask them, is your food delicious? You and the table of people start chatting, and you recognize that they're a table of famous people. Your field of view suddenly enlarges. So you've reframed the occasion that you were celebrating. When you tell that story next, you aren't going to be talking about you were at a table celebrating this. You're going to talk about the time you sat down beside a table of famous people. You've expanded your context, you've taken in new information, and you see your evening differently. So you went from the frame of your table to the reframe of everything that made these people famous. So, Tyson, you do reframes. What do you say is the conflict competency, the best reason for the reframe?
Hmm. Well, we've had past episodes about some of these topics in terms of what's helpful for a reframe. I think for me, a couple of ways in which that has happened is to inquire about our ability to be vulnerable, to trust, to have empathy. Those are definitely important pieces to reframe. Put yourself into the other person's shoes, so to speak. Um, I would also say from my experience that reframe is to be very curious, think about the possibilities of what think about to be curious and think about the possibilities about what the other person might be thinking to. And then also finally, I think even to your situation about the celebrities, it's seeing and also listening to what the other person is saying, right? And I think those are really important, helpful ways in order for us to have that expansion, to see the leaves differently, and it allows for us to see that bigger picture because it's not all about us, right?
Exactly. And your worldview, as integral as it is to you, as important as it is, so that you aren't paralyzed by every decision, it's not the only way of showing up in the world. It's not the only way of being. And if you can accept that their way is not necessarily wrong, it's right for them, then you can have a dialogue. But as long as you're going to make the other person wrong, you will never accept the reframe from their perspective, which is fine. We're not asking you to change your worldview. We're asking you to enlarge your scope to accept that yours is not the only possibility. And where it helps as a conflict competency is you can then see how much you agree on and whether this is a conflict that really has to define the nature of your relationship. Because conflict competence is about the quality of the relationship.
Mhm, mhm.
Thank you for raising that, Tyson.
Very welcome.
We hope you'll subscribe, like, share, ask good questions. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you again.
See you next week.